Hey everyone, this is going to be quite different from my usual videos since it's a pretty serious topic this time. Not what I planned my first video of 2026 to be like, but it's pretty important to the Nerf hobby here in Australia. On the 12th of January, the Australian government announced the intention to introduce the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026 to Parliament. This bill intends to bring in a wave of big changes to criminal law, migration, customs, and firearms laws. This is clearly in response to the tragic event that happened in Bondi recently, but with how rushed out the bill appears to be, it is very unfocused on the core issues it intends to solve and affects many of our personal freedoms instead. I won't be going into the whole bill in this video, since it covers a ton of things, and I don't want to get too political, but I will instead focus on the aspects that will directly affect the Nerf and wider foam flinging hobby space in Australia. I do recommend all Australians watching this video take the time to go through and read the bill themselves, as it wants to introduce many changes that can affect the lives of every law-abiding citizen. Also, please do your own research as well, and don't take this video as your only source of info, as I have no law background, and this is just how I and a few others are interpreting the bill. In this video, I'll be focusing on specifically Schedule 4 in the document, notably Part 5 Division 6 and Part 8. A brief rundown is that Part 5 revolves around changes to firearm laws, and Part 8 covers firearm-related gear. Starting off with Part 5 Division 6, this section goes into changes regarding what are classified as skirmish markers. Skirmish markers appear to originally refer to paintball markers, giving them a classification different to airsoft, gel ball, and real firearms. The bill proposes a change to the definition of the term, calling it a firearm that is designed to fire plastic, polymer, or hydrated superabsorbent polymer balls, darts, discs, or similar projectiles of any material, and includes goods commonly known as airsoft handguns, airsoft rifles, airsoft shotguns, blasters, gel blasters, or gel ball. In simple terms, this means that the hobby-level blasters are no longer in a legal grey area and will be covered by the law if the bill passes. For those unfamiliar, the law would only recognize a toy gun as one if it was solely made to be used as a toy, if it didn't fall under the definition of a replica firearm, and their appearance cannot be reasonably mistaken as a real firearm. Pretty much any blaster design that isn't made by the big blaster companies, such as the 3D printed designs or the worker blasters, haven't gone through any consumer law testing and likely won't get the toy firearm classification because of that, even if they don't meet the imitation firearms classification. If the bill gets passed, any blasters can fall under the skirmish marker classification and thus be subject to the import restrictions and requirements that already affect paintball markers. If you thought it was already tough to get blasters shipped from overseas without them being seized by customs, things are going to get a whole lot harder since you'll likely have to get police certifications for them. These import restrictions will also make it harder for the blaster shops within Australia, like Blastertech, Foamwork Adelaide, and Oz Toy Store to name a few, as they will likely need to get much harder to acquire import licenses if they want to continue selling blasters. This classification can also become a gateway to impose more restrictions on blasters in the future, since they'll now be covered by an official definition. On top of this, it intends to add a new sub-regulation to the definition of a firearm, calling it a low-powered device that meets the requirements of a projectile toy under the Consumer Goods Projectile Toys Safety Standard 2020 as enforced from time to time. This basically covers any of the branded stuff that you can buy commercially, including Nerf, X-Shot, and possibly Dart Zone/Adventure Force. Dart Zone is a bit iffy since they will need to go through the safety tests in other related countries, but since they don't officially sell their lineup here locally, they likely don't undergo or don't pass Australia's safety tests. In regards to their pro lineup, those blasters definitely don't pass the tests with their FPS numbers. The worker lineup does not meet this definition, since it doesn't go through the safety standards tests of any country other than China from my knowledge, so they fall into the grey area mentioned before. What this sub-regulation means is that when importing any of these products, they can be seized at customs with a valid reason backed by law. These changes will severely impact the growth and sustainment of the hobby here, as it will hamper the ability for many to get blasters in general. If they are implemented, it will likely mean that you'll only be able to buy blasters through official or licensed channels, with an even higher risk of blasters getting seized at customs if you bought them from overseas sellers. On top of that, the local businesses that support the hobby by importing and selling many of the blasters not officially sold in Australia will have their livelihoods affected due to the crackdown. The other section I wanted to focus on is Part 8 of the bill, which covers what's classified as ammunition equipment. Ammunition equipment means an item that is designed A, to be worn on any part of the body, and B, for the purpose of allowing the wearer to readily access ammunition to increase the speed of reloading, and C, to hold more than 30 rounds of ammunition. The classification does not cover items such as backpacks or pants pockets. This gear will be subject to import regulations and require an application for permission to import these goods into Australia, as well as documentation to facilitate the importation of goods into Australia. One of the glaring issues in this section is the vague classification of ammunition equipment. If understood as is, this will apply to any real steel, airsoft, and paintball tack gear, as well as the official Nerf tactical gear. As toy blasters are receiving an official firearm classification in this bill, it will likely mean that even the official branded products designed to hold toy magazines and darts will fall under this ammunition equipment classification and thus be affected by the import regulations. While this isn't directly related to the hobby as Part 5 Section 6, this does affect any of the tactical gear used within the hobby space. Like I covered in my beginner's guide, people gravitate towards forms of tactical gear since they let you easily carry and conveniently access spare magazines during games. Having restrictions on getting this gear in Australia will affect how many people play and change the dynamics of games as a whole, as it will become a lot harder to carry spare magazines and darts on the field. You likely won't be able to buy some cheap gear off sites like AliExpress anymore without having to first get permission to import them. Even just the use of the official Nerf gear is more effective than pockets or a backpack, but those can theoretically be restricted too. So now that we've covered the hobby-related things on the bill, what's going to happen now? The Parliament hearing is scheduled to take place on the 20th of January. Unfortunately, the due date for letter submissions to the committee and senators already closed on the 15th. I only found out about the bill on the 14th and didn't have time to get this video out before the cutoff. Fortunately, the Coalition and the Greens are both against the bill in its current state. Ignoring their political stances on other things, this is good, as the bill likely won't pass as it is in its current state and will be amended in the future. The downside is both parties are primarily focusing on the changes relating to hate speech and how they will impact every Australian's right to free speech, with the Greens specifically stating that they still support stricter gun laws. This means that while the bill won't pass as it is, there is a chance that these sections could go unchanged in its next iteration. Right now, all we can do is hope that the bill doesn't pass on the 20th, spread awareness of these issues, monitor the situation, and express our concerns to local senators and the committee when submissions open up again. If there are any big changes, I will try to make a follow-up video covering them as soon as possible. Well, that's it for this video. It's a bit of a disappointing way to start off 2026, but I'm trying to stay hopeful that these changes don't go through so that the Nerf and foam flinging hobby can continue to grow and thrive here in Australia. In other news, I've got quite a few big videos planned for the future. There's a backlog of blasters I need to cover, and another big video project similar to what I did last year, so subscribe, turn on notifications, and look forward to those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.